Facebook Live. So today I'm going to do a follow-up. I think it's a long overdue follow-up. I've spoken about forgiveness before. I've spoken about forgiving yourself, which I think is the place to start. Today I'm going to talk about forgiving others. Not an easy task, I have to say. It can cause some confusion there um, when we think of we have to forgive others. And then we have to let them go in order to move forward with our lives, and that that can cause us problems because the natural instinct is to want to get our own back, to want revenge, to want to see some sort of punishment come up, to want to see comeuppance happening to these people. And that doesn't always happen in reality. It just doesn't happen. And we can hold on to grudges for very, very long times. And although the reaction we're having is a very natural one and justified, in a lot of cases, it does hold us trapped in the past. And we're giving an awful lot of power to that past, to the conversations that we continue to have with these people in our head. It's all in our own head, these continued conversations, because it's firmly in the past. It is in the past. And that power and that energy that we're giving to it really would be better off spent healing ourselves. And that's what forgiving somebody else is all about. It's about us. It's got absolutely nothing to do with them. And I think that's where people get caught up. We think we have to forgive them and let them go and move forward. It's not really about that. It's about us making peace with the past, forgiving ourselves primarily, and then moving forward. The thing I'd always say though about this is I'd never ask anybody to forgive somebody. It's always a personal choice. So please remember that. I would always say to you, forgiveness is always a personal choice. But I would say to you is start with self-forgiveness. And that's why I did the first video and the first blog. And that's linked it's linked out in this week's blog. So you'll find that in the description below. And you'll be able to catch up on that. But I believe that self-forgiveness, which is really hard, it is hard to forgive ourselves. As I said, it holds us in the past, ties in that toxic shame and toxic guilt, really ties in with it. It ties us back with that fear we still maybe have with them. And we need to deal with those issues, and they can be really, really hard to do that. It's a lot of hard, courageous work to do that. But I believe it's at the heart of our serenity. I believe it's the heart of moving on with our lives and making peace, as I said, with the past and letting it go. But it is very hard work. So if you feel you're stuck in any way with this, this is one where you really need to get professional support with that. And you can come and work with me, or you can work with somebody local to yourself. It's up to you. So you can start with yourself. You can start with the self-forgiveness with yourself. You can start by putting some boundaries in as well. That's very important now, even with the other people that are in your life. And as I said, you can have a look at where I've talked about self-forgiveness before, if you like, in the other blog. Just a little reminder though that forgiveness versus reconciliation, and this I think is where people get caught up in the difference. They think they have to reconcile with the other person. That's what's going to happen. That you're going to be forced to reconcile with this person. You're going to be forced to forget what happened, and that's not what this is about. And it's a confusion that can occur and can cause us to get blocked. And as I said, forgiveness is only ever about ourselves. Reconciliation, on the other hand, is about the other person. It is about two people. The two people are at least two people involved. But somebody may not be, or they may be dead for whatever reason, but they may not be able or capable, or they would never feel sorry for what they did, or capable of doing reconciliation with you. And So you don't have to do reconciliation at all. You don't have to see that person. You don't have to go and talk to them even and tell them I forgive you. You don't have to do any of that. This is just about you. So forgiveness only requires you and you alone. You forgive yourself first, and only then if you choose. And sometimes it's enough to forgive ourselves in order to move forward. Sometimes that's enough of an amount of work that we lose the toxic shame, we lose the toxic guilt, we lose the fear. We become peaceful with the past, and that's enough to get us moving forward. We don't have to make the choice to forgive somebody else. We don't have to ever make that choice. We can if we choose to. And reconciliation then, as far as I'm concerned, would be another step on from that, if that was something you wanted to seek. Not always possible, as I said. There's a few things here also that can cause confusion is, letting go doesn't mean also we don't have to forget. It just means we've found peace. That we've found peace with the past and we can let it go. We're at peace with it, so we can let it go. We're not caught up in this negativity going on in our heads. We're not caught up in the confrontation. We're not so tied into negative core beliefs. We're not trapped by the past. So forgiveness basically isn't an excuse, or isn't excusing the other person. I think that's where people get confused. That's a lot of confusion happens around that. They think they have to excuse or condone what the other person did. It is not about that. Absolutely not about that. It doesn't mean you have to tell the person, as I said, that you forgive them. It doesn't mean you have to go and be in contact with them, or re-establish contact with that person. No matter how much somebody else might tell you that. Particularly if they're toxic, you certainly do not want them back in your life. You're setting a boundary there by saying, no, this person's gone. They're not going to be in my life anymore. And the other thing we have to remember sometimes too, that forgiveness can sometimes not be a one-time event. Yes, we can make a peace with the past, but then we can get triggered. But the trigger won't be as big. Now we can get triggered and we end up revisiting the past, but it won't be for as long a period of time, and you're not going to go back to square one where you perhaps are right now. You will have moved on considerably by doing your work on yourself, and you will have moved on from that. But we can get triggered by the past again. Something happens. Maybe the person that hurt you, you find out they've died, and that can bring up the past again, and for a short period of time, and that can be anything from an hour to a few hours to a day to even a short period of time, a few weeks of being upset and being caught up in anger, and being caught up again in the shame and the guilt and the fear. But you will quickly move on. And again, but if you feel yourself getting stuck there, by that trigger, a short period of therapy will help you with that, to move you on further. So always remember, forgiveness is about yourself. It's about starting with yourself. It's always about you, never about the other person. So that's really what I want to emphasize here this morning. There are huge benefits, and I've talked about these before, so I'm not going to really go into too much detail about the benefits of forgiving. Even just working on self-forgiveness can have huge mental and physical health improvements for yourself, because we're letting go of that bitterness, the anger, the grudges, the toxicity, the shame, the guilt, the fear. We're letting all that go. So therefore that impacts on our life today, and it impacts on our mental health, our emotional health, our physical health as well. And I do go into more details in the blog, which you can check out at www.deborahbyrnepsychologyservices.com. But I link to that in the description below, so you can do that. You can check that out and read those benefits for yourself if you're interested. Always remember with this, start small and build out from there. As I say with my mum's group, my free mums group, I say to them, get out the circle of trust. You're in the middle of the circle of trust, and then out you work out from that. And the people that are on the outside, sometimes they're the easier ones. If you need to set a boundary with, or if you need to work on something, they're easier to work on rather than the people closest to you. So think about, not taking too big a step with this. Like the person that is perhaps being the most toxic person in your life, and you have a lot of anger towards them. There's a lot of fear there, a lot of grief, there's a lot of unresolved grief, a lot of toxic shame, toxic guilt there. That might be too big a step for you if you were going to do this. So, a smaller steps is a great way to have a practice, really. It gives us confidence. It eases in, it frees up a lot of space in our head, and emotionally it'll free up a lot of space too. But always remember, forgiveness work is very triggering. So if it's too triggering, I have to reiterate this. Please seek professional help. I'm going to have to say this a few times to you. Please seek professional help and start with yourself. We always forget to start with ourselves. So some tips or steps for forgiving somebody else, and it's more detailed in the blog than what I can do here this morning on a live. Take your time. The first thing I would do is write down everyone that has hurt you in the past. If you're still holding on to it, even if it's a small thing, write them down, put them on that list. Think of them as the practice people. So even in a small way, the ones you haven't or can't let go of, those grudges, little tiny ones, or the ones that are niggling at you, that keep you caught up in your head. And we all have them. We all have them. Or maybe it's a situation involving yourself where you're really not forgiving yourself either. And you're not able to let go of something that you made a mistake in the past and you can't let it go. So, those people, those events, those situations that you haven't forgiven yet or haven't forgotten about yet, so who was involved? What did they do or not do? Maybe somebody didn't do something. Maybe you needed help and somebody didn't step in there. You need to work on forgiving them too, as much as forgiving yourself. Maybe you didn't step in for yourself. So you have to think about that. Who was involved? What did they do? But also, what did they not do? What did somebody not do? So if you're finding yourself holding on to anger, shame, fear, guilt, etc., unresolved grief about an event, a situation, a person, and then I'd say that they're the people you need to put on that list. They're the ones you haven't forgotten about. They're the ones you're still recycling your head. They may be the ones that are triggering you now, and I say they are, in the present moment, to react or overreact to things in this present moment. All those people that are, you're still reliving conversations in your head. And as I said, that includes yourself. So write them down, what they did that is holding you and trapping you. And it is a trap. And I've talked about traps and tracks in my group. So if you want training on that, you can go get free training there on that. It's quite a good and useful exercise to be able to do. So these are trapping you in the past. You can't let go of them. But the caveat here I would say to you is, if this was abusive behaviour, so I'm talking about sexual abuse, neglect, anything like that from childhood or teenage years, or even if you were in an abusive relationship or a toxic work environment. A lot of people don't realise that a toxic work environment is pretty much the same. It's really abusive behaviour. So please, in those cases, I would again stress, please seek professional support for working through that. Now, you've wrote your list, so the second step would be to reread it. Reread that list. Is there anyone or any event that's on the list that you can actually go, you know what, this is ridiculous. Ugh, why the hell am I holding on to that now? Just, if you can do it immediately, they're going to be the easier ones. If anybody just strikes you immediately, why am I still holding on to something that happened when I was 6? And you can logic it out and you can go, yeah, I can let go of the emotion here. This is a real quick one for me. Then do those ones quicker. Do the ones that are easier, the ones that are out on the outside circle of trust, rather than ones that are fresher, maybe they were much bigger, much more toxic environments. Do those ones more immediately and then come back to the next people on your list, the next easiest ones. As I said, always try and start small. So when you reread this list, questions you might want to ask yourself are, what do I want or need maybe exactly from this person? Is it an apology? And then you've got to ask yourself the question, well, if it is, how long am I prepared to put my life on hold, waiting for that person to apologize to me, or for something I have no control over? Because I have no control over whether they will, apologize or not. But I'm putting my life on hold. And that is what you're doing. This is what I mean by a trap. You're putting your life on hold, waiting for that apology. How long are you prepared to do this? Or are you willing now to work on it yourself and do the forgiveness work? Another question you ask here is, do you need them to know how you feel, even after all this time? You're probably going to say to me, yes, I do. But the only thing I'd say to you here is, again, the apology is going to be outside of your control. Even if they can do it or are willing to do it, thinking about that person, are they able to do it? Would they be sincere in doing it? Or would they just cause more damage by saying, putting you off, saying, that was when we were 6. Don't be ridiculous. That would cause you more emotional damage. So are you willing to do that dance with them again? Do you want to do that dance with them again? Because as I said, you can do forgiveness work, but it doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and talk to the other person. Next would be to do a form of letting go exercise. Now, one form of letting go, and it's the basic forgiveness work really, would be to take each person individually, and as I said, start with the easiest person and write a letter to that person. And what you want to do in that letter, now you're doing you're answering the questions that I've just said to you. You're telling them how you feel now, not just in the past, but now. And you're telling them how you felt in the past at the time of whatever it was that happened, and how it has affected your life. How has it affected you as a result of their actions? What happened to you? Was it good? Was it bad? Can you accept that there might have been good in there too? Write it all down. Get out. You're getting it up and out. You're getting all that emotion up and out, all those feelings, and you're telling them, you're pouring your heart out in this letter as much as possible. This letter isn't for sending. If you feel strongly enough to send the letter, I would actually talk to a therapist first. I really would. I would say to you, no, stop. Go talk to a therapist and talk through with an independent person this, your counsellor, who would be able to talk you through it, the consequences of actually sending this letter. So my advice to you is, if you're doing this, I wouldn't send a letter. I wouldn't send this letter unless you you talk to somebody about this. So this letter is actually not for sending. What you're actually going to do with this letter is to burn it, and to visualize yourself actually letting the situation go and letting the person go. What you're doing there is, while you're visualizing, you're releasing them, but you're also releasing the past, the hold that the past has on you. And as I said, this is quite emotional, this work. It's quite heavy and hard work to do. So, again, I'm going to say to you, you may need support to do this. And you also may need to complete this exercise, the letter writing exercise, with this person a number of times before you'll actually get closure. So you'd write the letter a number of times, you'd burn the letter, you'd visualize letting that person go, you'd visualize releasing the past having a hold on you, and release out the situation. Yes, you are allowed scream. Yes, you are allowed yell and curse and shout, particularly during the visualization. The only thing I'd say to you here is don't do this in front of children. They're not going to understand. You can use, or you may need to use, anger management techniques here too. And this is why I'm saying to you, you might need the support of a therapist to do this work. So anger management techniques that you could use would be, you use your journal. Is a great place to journal. Again, you're getting it all out. You're getting it all out of your head. You're getting all the emotions up and down on paper. It's quite good exercise to do. Vigorous exercise is also really good. Really pounding the pavement, heavy gardening, lifting weights, anything that's going to get you sweating and pumping, because you're using up those excess flight, fight or fright hormones that are coursing through your body because of the anger. Wall pushing is a technique that I would teach as well. Punching a pillow. There are other techniques that you can use that are very effective, that are anger management techniques that a therapist can do with you. The other thing I would suggest to you, and I've done it out in more detail, I'm not going to go into it now because I'm conscious of the time, is to write a letter to yourself after that, after you do that letter writing to the other person. So I've explained in detail about that, writing the letter to yourself as well is also about, treating yourself as a friend would, with compassion, with self-forgiveness, with acceptance of yourself. But I detail that out more in the blog, and as I said, there's a link in the description below. Couple of points just to finish up here. Some people on your list may already be dead. You may or may not know that. You may have lost contact with them. You might not know what's happened to them. Knowing what you want and need from them, though, is a big clue to something you need to give to yourself right now, and you are capable of doing that. So forgiving yourself, and this is why I say, coming back and forgiving yourself, and even acknowledging what was done to us, and how we feel about it, and telling them what they did in a letter, it does and can help us reach a level of peace with the past and with the situation. The other thing I would say to you is, remember, negative people like this, they are very, very difficult people, and you have to set boundaries with them if they're still around in the future. And letting them back into your life is would be very toxic. I would not recommend it. So you have to remember that, to hold a boundary. And you may, because of the past, have other people in your life that are reminders of those people, and they can be quite toxic. So you may need to do simultaneous work on the current negative people in your life and setting boundaries with them, and deleting them or minimizing contact with them, while also trying to work with the past and forgiveness there. Just a reminder though that life is short. I know people don't think that, but trust me, it goes in a blink of an eye. Just a reminder that, don't wait too long to make that decision to move forward in your life. It can be hard work, I know, so please seek therapy if you have become stuck. And we can get stuck in our emotions. They can catch us up and just keep us trapped there for very long periods of time. So try and seek help if you need it. I will leave a link to the blog, the original blog. There are lots of links in that blog, as always, like how to deal with negative people, links to other videos I have done, links to join my free group, links to work with me. So do check it out if you need it, or to read the original post. I do realize that this is hard work. and you have to be compassionate and gentle with yourself when you're doing this. I will leave it there. As always, thank you very much to those that watch live every week, and to those who watch. I know an awful lot of people watch these in replay here and on YouTube, so thank you very, very much for doing that. And as always, I will talk to you next week on a different topic. And if you ever have a topic you want me to talk about or you want information on, drop me a message. Just drop me a line and I'll do my best to get that information for you. I'll see you again. Thank you. Have a good week. Have a safe week, and have a great weekend.